little bit annoyed with the way the stakeholders and how we managed the Azimio election, specifically the people who held responsibility. You know, they led us along. You know, as an adult, I deal in data. As a public policy person, I deal in data, and I'm consulted here and there. On Wednesday, a client gave me their exit polls to actually just look at the outlier, because they weren't getting the outlier, and they wanted to give it to somebody else who had given them the job. So I looked at the data that they had. And already by Wednesday evening, we had sufficient data that would point you to where the elections were going, the results were going out. So I had that. Of course, I spoke to the other people, and there were a lot of calls, people coming in telling you, how is this, how is it turning out? But the Azimio side actually kept on leading us on the supporters. All through, we are winning. And the data was pointing to the contrary. It was in the portal. There were a lot of Majitu stories about, initially the media had been hacked. Some of us are actually very old people. If I want to win an election, why am I hacking a media system? And there are no very complex systems in media houses, by the way. Just you, Trevor, here probably, and Winnie and the other guys in the gallery sitting down with some Excel sheets. So why am I hacking that if I want to win the elections? You are not declaring that. So I think the guys who are managing the public communication side of Azimio also a little bit of carried us as children, because they kept on leading us until the last end. The first time we see there is a problem is when Kanchori shows up and making noise and says that Bomas is a crime scene. Bomas was not a forensic audit center. It was simply a tallying center. But what we saw there was akin to a forensic audit. And when you see people starting to behave that, we realize there is a problem. Then the leaders on that, Baba is showing up at Bomas, and all of us are there. People are looking forward. That particular end, they led us, and people who actually did that, honestly, Trevor, must actually be called to account. Even as Baba and Azimio go to court, I think in-house, we also need to stop taking our supporters for granted. That you cannot be leading us on, even when there is evidence. There was the forms in the portal. Now we are being given all manner of stuff. Like, I'll tell you an example. I asked somebody within the system, or rather the tallying structure, whatever they were doing, I asked them, if you're talking about, when I talk about the kind of stories that were being given, probably we need to talk about that, because one thing that I have seen in the reports by observers has been misinformation. And it's not just misinformation generally, but it's also even to supporters when you are in-house. Like, for example, people were given this notion that, quote unquote, the system will take care of the election. Quote unquote, even getting to a level where you tell people that NIS got into the system, it put in forms that will help us and favor us, and then you ask them if they have gotten into the system and put in new form 34S, have they also gone into all the phones that took those forms at polling stations and also replaced that in galleries? And then they think you do not understand. So the guys also on the Azimio side played us. But then getting into the technical bit of it is that on Azimio we lost on stakeholder management. From where I sit, this is my analysis. This election was won and lost in Bungoma. Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Because Wetangula delivers about 255,000 votes to William Ruto. The difference between Raila and William Ruto is 233,000 votes. Yet Bungoma is the only county that William Ruto was able to flip completely in the way it's been voting. So stakeholder management, not just at that high level, but this election, if you look at it, the only outlier in the data, if you look at that data, the only trend that changes is Bungoma. So this election, in my opinion, was won and lost in Bungoma. And how did we lose Wetangula? Of course, we called him a tick. We called him, we will call him Davadi 70%, and Wetangula we called him %. And we made all manner of jokes about it. The same thing speaks to what is happening at the moment after elections. You see people now almost breaking the door as they head to Kenya Kwanza. People who were initially in Azimio.
Yeah.
You know why? It still talks about stakeholder management. Parties that were not either ODM or Jubilee were treated so badly in Azimio. During the campaigns, you would be there, as in there was a lot of talking about zoning and everything else. We treated our partners. There was very poor stakeholder management. On that particular bit, Kenya Kwanza beat us fair. The other bit of it is that there was assumption. Lots of assumption. Of course, you cannot run a campaign based on propaganda only. Like I've told you, there are all manner of stories we're being told, things will be done this way. And then you ask guys, we know that results at the polling station are final. So when somebody's telling you that we will get some votes along the way, outside of Form 34A, where else do you get votes? You don't get votes along the way. You come with them as you go up. If anything, they can only reduce. But if there's any form that has got a problem, you go back to Form 34A for the presidential election. So there were a lot of, we ran a campaign on assumption, poor stakeholder management. But this does not point to the candidate, to the person of Raila Odinga. You know, even in a team, the manager of a team is important as the player himself, whoever manages a talent. There are a lot of good talents, but if they're not managed well. So even as we move on and ask those things, from where I sit, I might not be thoroughly legal, but I will tell you that I feel we might not even have a serious case at the Supreme Court. I mean, that is the truth, because look at the 4 commissioners, for example. That is a chapter we need to forget, because number one, I think Kenya has got better people than those 4 people we saw there. If those are the people who, as in when Chebukati and the others exit, are going to take over the commission, then there's a reason to get worried. As in, leave alone the mathematics and everything else, they are not even consistent. I'll give you an example. Newton spoke about them trying to cause apprehension and everything else. A friend of mine was watching the announcement with her children, very young children. None of them is more than 14 years. Mm-hmm. Everybody was glued. And then you guys put in a split screen. Then they saw some other people looking like they are lost at Serena, looking like they want to cry. And on the other side, there was chaos. These young children started crying. You know, that kind of anxiety that the nation is waiting. And people show up, they tell us they'll give us a comprehensive statement going forward. If there's anything, those 4 commissioners need to go home. Because you cannot put the nation to apprehension to that particular level. Again, let me ask you questions, Trevor, that people don't want to ask. Did commissioners expect to vote over our vote? When it comes to the hierarchy of decision making, the vote is supreme. The Constitution, in the first article, says all the supreme, as in sovereign power, belongs to the people. And they are giving us these Majitu stories about we did not agree. They were to agree on our results. Even as an Azimio person. You know, that is why one of the reasons why even the people in Azimio don't embrace those 4 commissioners. Because those guys are bringing in confusion that we don't want. They wanted to vote over our vote, that the rest of us vote, and then the commissioners agree on our vote. As in, what kind of constitutional thinking is that? They want, as in, they say that they are not taking ownership of the results. Who has invited them to take ownership? Not the Constitution, not the electoral framework. It is none of their business. This was not an administrative process where they were supposed to take ownership or anything else. We voted. By the way, even if Chebukati liked the results or not, it is none of his business. He's just a conveyor belt. He just responds and puts the results out there. So on that particular bit, I think for we in Azimio, we made some blunders. This election, like I've said, was won and lost in Bungoma. Yes. So the one person who made the difference in this particular election is Moses Wetangula. Okay.